Good morning, good afternoon for those online who may be following us from elsewhere other than the Western Hemisphere here. So we're here today because we have the fourth United Nations Conference to review progress made in the implementation of the Program of Action to prevent, combat, and eradicate the illicit trade in small arms and light weapons in all its aspects. The review conference takes place every 6 years. This is the fourth one. The last one was in 2018. And this one started yesterday. And so the purpose of this conversation with the press, with the media, is really information sharing on what could happen. And we will have another meeting like this one on the 9th of July to tell you what did indeed happen. So without further ado, let me present myself. I'm Ivor Richard Fung. I'm the Chief of the Conventional Arms Branch at the United Nations Office for Disarmament Affairs. I'm joined here by two eminent personalities, the Under-Secretary General and High Representative for Disarmament Affairs, Ms. Izumi Nakamitsu, and the President of the Fourth Review Conference, Ambassador, you all know the name, right? Maritza Chan-Valverde. So you are all welcome. Since the beginning of the conference yesterday, and even in preparation for the conference, we've kept very close relations with the media. Social media, we've been on it. Press releases have been issued, tweets, and many other, like Instagram. So we've been active, and the purpose was really to raise awareness, to bring the conference closer to you, to the public. And today you have that opportunity to ask questions more, and we will have answers provided by our special guests. Let me now pass the floor to the Under-Secretary General and High Representative for a few remarks on the contents, the substance of the review conference and the issue of small arms and light weapons in general. And we will have the president of the conference to also intervene. But now let me start with you, Izumi.
Thank you very much, Ivor. Good morning, and thank you very much for coming early in the morning, and also those who are connecting remotely, thank you very much for your interest. I would just make only a very few remarks about the background and why this is important. Why it is because small arms and light weapons are, some people call it de facto weapons of mass destruction. 45% of all violent death globally actually are committed by small arms. And in conflict-affected places, this figure is actually double in terms of the impact of those weapon systems. This means actually every 2 minutes, someone is killed by small arms. So the impact is real. As I delivered Secretary General's remark yesterday at the conference, the impact of these small arms and light weapons is by no means small or light. So this is a very important conference. As you can imagine, gender-based violence, both in public, in conflict situations, in crime situations, but also domestic violence at home, terrorism, violent crimes, all these things actually are attributed to the use of small arms and light weapons. And as you can imagine, this also impacts how sustainable development goals might be or might not be realized. So the impact of these arms is quite multifaceted and very serious. And that is why we feel this review conference is a very important opportunity to start addressing these in the real sense, in the pragmatic real sense, and making sure that the international community, the member states, will, number one, review progress, but number two, more importantly, address some of the new challenges that have emerged since the last review conference. Now, this review conference is a once in 6-year opportunity. So I really hope that member states will take this as a very important opportunity for their actions. Now, some backgrounds for this POA, Program of Action. It was adopted in 2001, so it's been there for some time. In 2005, member states also adopted, within the context of the POA, international tracing instrument. So it's a package of POA, Program of Action, and international tracing instrument to make sure that they will control the illicit trade in small arms and light weapons in order to reduce the impact, especially human sufferings that these weapons cause. Now, there is also a complementary instrument that member states have also adopted. This is called Global Framework for Through-Life Conventional Ammunition Management. Ambassador Chan was a vice president for that process as well, so she's really well familiar with the entire package of how to control and reduce small arms and light weapons and also ammunitions. Now, what are some of the new challenges that we hope member states will tackle? For example, developments in technology that is really creating both challenges and, of course, some opportunities. For example, the 3D printed weapons, I mean, those present new challenges, and there will have to be some sort of a new mechanism to tackle those new and emerging challenges. And how to strengthen and create international cooperation and assistance mechanism is another key, because we want those issues to be tackled at the country level, at the field level, more concretely. And for that, I think we need to have a clearer mechanism to support those countries that have prioritized in terms of tackling those challenges. I think you have heard some of the exchanges, I hope, yesterday. Today, Maritza will continue with the high-level segment and general views. And then, of course, there are intense discussions and negotiations that will follow throughout this week and next. We hope that there will be a strong outcome document adopted, because this would also feed into Pact for the Future, which the Secretary General, within which the Secretary General also prioritized this issue, very much looking at the impact of these weapons together with how it is impacting the Sustainable Development Goals. In other words, we need to have a progress in order for us to be able to tackle those issues more holistically and more comprehensively. It is not really impactful if we are actually dealing with those issues in a siloed, fragmented manner, only to look at the supply side, only to look at the demand side. We need to make sure that those approaches will be combined and become more strategic and holistic. And we hope that this will actually be a prime opportunity to have agreements at the member states level, feeding into the Summit of the Future. Now, today is also the International Day for the Elimination of Sexual Violence in Conflict. So let us make sure that there will be strong voices heard from the disarmament and arms control communities and reaching over to development, but also those communities that are really, in the real sense, impacted by these kinds of weapons, de facto weapons of mass destruction. So I will stop here, and Madam President will tell us more about her ambitions and her strategies and her hope in this process. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ivor and Izumi, and thank you for being here today. As you may know, I was elected president of the Fourth Review Conference on the Program of Action Small Arms Allied Weapons in all its aspects yesterday. As the High Representative mentioned, I do not take this work lightly. I have traveled extensively during the last 6 months in order to make sure that I understand well the priorities and the challenges that many regions in the world are facing in combating and curbing the illicit trade in small arms allied weapons. Over the next 8 days that we have for this conference, we need to agree on an outcome document, an action-oriented outcome document. And why is this important? It is important because the next review conference is in 2030. And in 2030, we have the review of the Agenda 2030. So it needs to set the tone for the 2030 Agenda review process. This review conference needs to recommit to certain fundamental elements of the Program of Action and the ITI, but beyond recommitting, we need to ensure that the instrument is able to adapt to the changing circumstances. And that is something crucial. In my capacity as President-designate, over the last few months, I have traveled to several countries, and through my interactions, I was reminded by delegations of the persistent challenges that they are facing. Some are new, and some are constant throughout the time. First one is the diversion of legally transferred or manufactured arms to illicit markets. And this is a concern that I heard in both Africa and Latin America. For example, in Africa and the Caribbean, where despite no major production, illicit weapons find their way to their neighborhoods, to their streets, and to their homes. These weapons are legally manufactured and transferred today, can be at risk of becoming illicit years from now. That's why the discussions during this fourth review conference will address the diversion of small arms allied weapons throughout their life cycle. Secondly, everywhere I went, states expressed concerns with the challenges of keeping pace with the rapid technological advancements in weapons, manufacturing, and design, such as the emergence of 3D printed weapons. This is not in just some parts of the world. Even small island states have seized 3D printed guns. But technology also comes with opportunities, including for marking, tracing, and the interdiction of weapons. That's why the conference is discussing the establishment of an open and technical expert group to ensure the full and effective implementation of the Program of Action and the International Tracing Instrument in light of technological developments. We must address this issue now, considering the pace in which the risk develop. The next review conference will be too late. And the member states do need the tools to address these new challenges. The review conference provides the member states with the tools they need at their national authorities, at the regional level, to make sure that they can address the illicit trade in small arms allied weapons. And third is the challenge faced by many countries, and is the lack of capacity and resources for the full implementation of the POA and the ITI. There is a relatively small pool of donors and a high demand for assistance, including capacity building, install pack management, border controls, marking, record keeping, and law enforcement training, and the financial, material, and technology divide between developed and developing countries is growing. This conference then needs to decide on innovative and more structured approaches to international cooperation and assistance. And the High Representative mentioned it. It's very important that we have a structured procedure for international cooperation and assistance coming out from this review conference. And fourth is gender mainstreaming and women's participation. The POA was born gender blind 23 years ago. During the RepCon 3 in 2018, BMS 7 and BMS 8, we have been solving the gender blindness of the POA. And that means having data, disaggregated data of those most affected by the illicit trade. So in this review conference, I'm working with states to find a way to meaningfully address gender perspectives in the outcome. We have scheduled another media briefing on July 1st after the conference finishes on the 28th of June. There are a lot of, we have the high-level debate yesterday and today, and then we will continue with the negotiations of the outcome document. It is a very interesting and demanding process. Delegations have conflicting views, but my job is to reach consensus and ensure that we have progress in something that, as the High Representative mentioned, there's nothing light in small arms and light weapons, and there's nothing small in the effect that they have in sustainable development and the life lost. 700 people die daily due to small arms, and most of gender-based violence is committed at the tip of a gun. So we do need to address this issue and do it urgently. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam President, High Representative. Let me recognize the presence in the room of a group of youth champions, to whom I would like to give the floor now to pose a question. After that, I will invite those online to come in. Roberta.
Good morning. My name is Roberta Bojang. I'm one of the youth champions attending the conference. As you may know, my generation and I are disproportionately affected by hostilities, either as victims of violence or also through the association with violence, through small arms and light weapons, deeply impacting our communities. So my question to you, High Representative Nakamitsu, is what can the UN do to help us in facing these challenges? And also specifically, a question related to our presence here is, what is the importance of including young people in these disarmament discussions, especially, for example, the RefCon 4? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
High Representative.
Yes, thank you very much for being here, and also thank you for the question. You know, as you said, many people, 1 in 4 young people in the world today live in conflict situations across the world. And that means that you are most vulnerable to various impacts of conflict and violence. As you say, you could be vulnerable to the impact, and also some young people are you know, associated, affiliated, involved in the conflict as well. So there are various dimensions that we need to really capture and really understand and tackle. But what this means essentially for this kind of a diplomatic global conversation is that your voices really are important. Your voices actually should be heard, and you should be also part of the solutions in terms of discussions. So first and foremost, I think what the UN can do and should do is to make sure that you are engaged, and which is why you are here. We try to make sure that you have a place, you have a seat, and your voices will be heard in this kind of important diplomatic conversations. Because what you can say is the real story. It's not some sort of a theoretical conversations that from a safe place, the diplomats can conduct, but they need to really make sure that those diplomatic conversations will really tackle the real impacts of those weapons. So first and foremost, we try to make sure that there are platforms and places, space for young people, and that's one of the very important roles that the UN is trying to play. And as you can see, it's not just in disarmament, but the Secretary General actually has prioritized the youth engagement in those conversations as one of the top priorities in multilateral work that we are trying to do. Another thing, at the intergovernmental level, the 8th biannual meetings, there are also several references made to the importance of youth engagement. And by the way, it's not just in this POA process, but also across the board. The youth engagement is a critical component of finding the solutions to the world's really difficult challenges and the problems. Number two, in order for you to be able to engage effectively, you need to be engaged. You need to be, equipped with skills and knowledge so that you can influence those diplomats and UN officials like us. I do believe that there are now a number of useful platforms for that sort of a youth engagement, empowerment, and training and education opportunities. And that is one of the ways for the UN to make sure that your voices actually are going to be impactful. So in other words, what I want to say is that we at the UN don't talk about youth engagement as sort of a, checking the box kind of an exercise, but we are really looking for real impact. And for that to happen, we are prepared to do everything in our power to have more opportunities, more learning opportunities, and more engagement opportunities for you. So thank you very much. My word of encouragement also is, if you will, putting a bit of a responsibility on your side as well. Stay engaged and challenge us. Don't just follow what we might say to you, but you tell us what you think is important. That sort of activism is a key to any problem that we have today. Thank you.
Wonderful. Stay engaged. So I will now turn to those online. Please, when you take the floor, present yourself before asking a question. No one. Okay, go, please.
Thank you for your briefing. My name is Yuya from Kyodo News, Japanese media. I have two questions. One is the outcome. So as you mentioned about the outcome document, so could you explain more detail? And then when will you adapt it? The last of the meeting? So yeah.
Okay, we'll take one or two more.
Can I have a second question?
Yes.
And second, so how do you connect the result of the conference to the real station? As you know, Gaza, Ukraine, and Sudan, Haiti, wherever. So as you know, there are so many conflicts there. It's not only problem of the small arms, but also the mass destruction. But how can the result of the meeting be used in practice? So that is the second question. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else in the room or online? Okay, we go with those two questions.
Thank you very much for your question. The outcome document is supposed to be adopted at the end of the conference on the 28th of June. Tonight, we'll have a revised draft of the outcome document, and that will set the tone for negotiations on Friday. From there on, we'll sense the temperature in the room and how member states react to what we have proposed to them so far. It's a balancing act. There are member states who really want to push forward and others that are more reserved in what they are willing to adopt as an outcome document. But please, you need to keep in mind that the POA is a universal, politically binding commitment. It's not a legally binding treaty. There is a difference with the POA and the Arms Trade Treaty. States decide how to implement the program of action at the national, regional level. And that's why in certain regions we have regional centers that support the implementation of the program of action at the regional level. Nationally, what we provide member states is with tools. What information we need to assess progress? What are the challenges that they are facing in implementing the program of action? Sometimes they need more resources. It does require interagency coordination, and that goes to the strength of the state, how the state has the ministries, the agencies working together in order to assess the program of action. So in that regard, the program of action, and going back to your second question, does not address specific conflict situations. They are the purview of the UN Security Council in some cases, or the Arms Trade Treaty in Geneva now. But what the program of action does is that when these member states are able to have the institutions to work together, they can see the costumes, foreign affairs, border control can work together to address and curb the illicit trade. So it does require a whole of a government approach, and it depends on the level of development of a member state. But we cannot underestimate how important the program of action is. It is the only universal, recognized political commitment framework that we have so far. And that's why we have more than 100 member states taking the floor at the general debate. That is important. In an organization comprised of 193 member states, almost more than half of them are coming to talk on why this review conference is important. They can also address their conflict or regional situations. And our commitment is to ensure that we have a balance of the views that have been expressed and address the major concerns of the most affected states. And going back to your question, you are the largest generation of youth in history. 1.8 billion people are under 25 years old. So we have to pay attention to them and the world we're leaving behind them. The POA right here, right now, is the instrument that member states have to ensure that their commitments can be translated into actions.
Maybe
Yes.
just to complement the President. So like in any other disarmament arms control field, we have a sort of toolbox of various instruments. In the small arms and light weapons area, program of action framework is one of the key instruments. As Maritza said, it is a politically binding universal framework that actually guides the work at the global level, but our role is also to make sure that the standards and norms and policies and strategies that member states will craft at the global level will then be translated into regional level efforts and then also implemented at the national level. And then they are in the wider toolbox. There are other instruments such as Arms Trade Treaty, which regulates, it's a treaty, so it's legally binding on the states parties that are part of that treaty that regulates legal trading of arms. We also have various, within that toolbox, we also have regional instruments. I mean, the immediate example that come to our minds, of course, is the African Union Silencing the Guns framework. And now at the country level, we are trying to also make sure that this framework and the standards that the global level efforts are making will also be translated at the national level through, for example, the Secretary General's still small funding mechanism, Saving Lives Entity, Salient, using the United Nations resident coordinator on the ground, working with the government that has actually prioritized in terms of tackling these issues to make sure that there will be a holistic development framework within which the small arms and light weapons issues will be addressed. And with the support of these catalytic small funds. Japan is one of the contributors, financial contributors into that fund. So we have the global level, regional level, and the national level efforts, and then we have to make sure that those toolbox will be utilized and combined in an effective manner. Now, how do we actually use this in the real life conflict? Now, Ukraine and Gaza are still ongoing serious conflicts, but in some of the post-conflict areas, it is being utilized. I mean, the good example is South Sudan. It's one of the salient countries where we are working with the government, making sure that those small arms issues will be tackled on the ground. So, we need to make sure that these global efforts will actually make impact when the conflict situations were to be end, meet somehow a sustainable end. I hear more and more many countries starting to talk about, for example, arms flow into Ukraine, also, starting to think about how to make sure that illicit diversions will be prevented. One of the really important regional framework is in the Western Balkans, CSEC. What's what's the Southeast European? It's an acronym.
European
Clearinghouse for small arms. And the reasons why that framework, regional framework, was created was because arms flowing into the former Yugoslavia after the conflict started to leak out from that region and got into those weapons illicitly, got into the wrong hands. For example, the famous Paris terrorist attacks. The weapons were actually coming from that region, the Western Balkans. So a number of member states have started to tackle at the regional level using this kind of a framework to counter small arms and light weapons, illicit diversions. So, you can see how those global efforts can impact the regional and also the country level efforts. And we need to absolutely make sure that when the conflicts were to end, we will include those small arms issues, the proliferation of small arms issues as part of also peace building, post-conflict peace building efforts as well.
Thank you very much, High Representative and President. Are there more questions? Those online in the room? If yes.
This is Shohei Yana from NHK Japan Broadcasting Corporation. Thank you for today's briefing. May I ask a question to Ms. Nakamitsu about disarmament around the world? As you know, Russian President Putin is visiting Pyongyang as two countries expand the military cooperation. Do you have any reaction to this?
The only reaction I can give is that he is there today. We are obviously following his visit with interest. We haven't heard much about the conclusion or the outcome of that visit. That's, at the moment, my reaction.
Okay, if I see no one again amongst the youth, any more questions? No? So, ladies and gentlemen, this brings us to the close of our media encounter with you in the context of the 4th Review Conference of the Program of Action on Small Arms and Light Weapons. As I said in my opening remarks, we would be debriefing the media again, and this would be on the 1st of July. I said 9, but it's on the 1st of July. And so that would be a very good opportunity for you to fill up this room, because we will have more conclusions of the mission to share with you. Today was just to exchange so that you can carry to the public some of the information, some of the things that are being discussed in the room now. So I think we have done just that. So I thank you all for coming. Thank you, High Representative. Thank you, President Chan. And bye-bye for now, and see you at the close of the meeting. Thank you. Bye-bye.